The wind howled through the trees, carrying with it the icy bite of winter, as Sergeant Ryan Blake knelt beside the frozen creek, his breath forming ragged clouds in the frigid air. Beside him, Max, his Belgian Malinois, stood alert, ears twitching at the distant sounds of the forest. They had been out here for weeks, surrounded by nothing but towering pines and silent snow-covered hills. Ryan had come to the mountains to escape, to outrun the memories of war that clung to him like shadows. But he knew deep down that there was no outrunning the past. The nightmares followed him even here, creeping into his sleep, whispering in the wind. The only thing that kept him tethered to reality was Max, his unwavering companion, always watching him with those dark, knowing eyes. The decision to leave everything behind hadn't been easy, but it was necessary. After returning from Afghanistan, Ryan found himself drowning in a world that no longer made sense. The noise of the city, the meaningless conversations, the crushing weight of expectation, it was all too much. He packed what little he needed and drove until the roads turned to dirt, until the world became quiet enough to breathe again. Max had been with him through it all, the war, the long nights, the moments when Ryan thought about ending it all. The dog never left his side, a living reminder that he still had something worth fighting for. Their days in the cabin were simple, hunting, gathering wood, and watching the snow fall in heavy silence. But Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming. A storm, yes, but something more, something darker. It hit them without warning. The sky, once a serene winter gray, turned violent, unleashing a blizzard that swallowed the forest whole. Within hours, the cabin was buried under thick drifts of snow, and the biting wind cut through even the thickest layers of clothing. Ryan secured what he could, packing a small rucksack with essentials, canned food, a knife, extra blankets. He knew they couldn't stay. The weight of the snow on the old roof creaked ominously, and deep down, his instinct screamed that it wouldn't hold much longer. "Time to move, buddy," he murmured, ruffling Max's thick fur. The dog responded with a sharp bark, as if sensing the urgency. With the storm raging around them, they set off into the wilderness. The forest was an unforgiving place in the dead of winter. The snow came up to Ryan's knees, slowing their progress as they trudged forward, heading toward the valley where he hoped to find shelter. Max led the way, his strong legs cutting through the snow effortlessly, always scanning for danger. Hours passed and exhaustion set in. Ryan's fingers had gone numb despite his gloves, and his breath felt like ice in his lungs. He wasn't sure how much further they could go when Max suddenly stopped, ears pinned forward, a low growl rumbling in his chest. Ryan froze, his hand instinctively reaching for the knife at his belt. He strained to see through the swirling snow, and then he saw them, shadows moving between the trees. Wolves. His heart pounded as he slowly backed away, keeping Max close. The wolves were hungry, their eyes fixed on the two intruders in their territory. Ryan whispered a command, and Max bared his teeth, stepping in front of him protectively. "Easy, boy," he muttered, his breath visible in the freezing air. The wolves didn't attack, but they followed, keeping their distance as Ryan and Max pushed deeper into the forest. Each step felt heavier, the weight of fatigue dragging him down. But Max kept him going, nudging him forward whenever he slowed, his body pressed close to provide warmth. As night fell, Ryan found a small overhang beneath a rocky ridge where they could take shelter. His limbs ached and the bitter cold gnawed at him, but he forced himself to keep moving. He built a small fire with trembling hands, pulling Max close to share what little warmth they could. "You always have my back, don't you?" Ryan murmured, scratching behind Max's ears. The dog pressed closer, his body radiating reassurance. That night, the nightmares came again. Gunfire, screaming, the suffocating heat of the desert. Ryan woke in a cold sweat, gasping for air, and Max was there, pressing against his chest, grounding him in the present. He buried his face in the dog's fur and whispered, "I'm sorry." Max didn't move, didn't judge. He never did. Morning came, bringing with it a break in the storm. Ryan knew they couldn't stay in the wilderness any longer. He had to push on, had to find a way back to civilization before the cold claimed them. As they trekked toward the valley, Ryan's legs grew weaker. The hunger, the exhaustion, the memories, they were all catching up to him. He stumbled, falling to his knees in the snow. Max circled back, barking frantically, licking his face. "I'm okay," Ryan muttered, but the truth was he wasn't. Max whined and nudged him forward, refusing to let him quit. Step by step, they made their way down the mountain, the trees thinning out until, at last, Ryan spotted the familiar sight of a ranger station in the distance. Relief flooded him, but it was short-lived. The station looked abandoned, its windows broken and the door hanging open. He approached cautiously, Max at his side, and pushed inside. The place was empty, except for an old radio sitting on the counter. Ryan staggered to it, his frozen fingers fumbling with the dials. "Come on," he muttered. "Work." Static filled the air, then, "Hello, this is Ranger Outpost 12. Do you need assistance?" Ryan's voice cracked. "Yes, need help." He turned to Max, who sat watching him, tail wagging gently. "We made it, buddy." Rescue came the next morning, and as Ryan rode in the back of the rescue truck with Max beside him, he realized something. He had survived more than just the storm. He had survived himself. And it was all because of the dog who never left his side. Months later, Ryan sat outside his cabin, staring at the distant mountains. Max lay at his feet, ears flicking every now and then at the sounds of the forest. "You saved me," Ryan said softly. "Guess I owe you one." Max lifted his head, eyes shining with understanding. Ryan smiled for the first time in a long time. Some bonds are forged in fire, some in ice. But the strongest ones, like the bond between a man and his dog, are forged in survival.